Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Old Hunt, where we are still celebrating 10 years of Bloodborne. We have just finished setting up our arcane playthrough build here. We have our first arcane weapon. We have taken our saw spear. We have converted its damage to fire via a blood gem, because as we know, just blood gems will define our weapons, just as blood defines an organism. Of course, and we're going to put our newly minted arcane saw spear, fire saw spear, to work in getting some revenge on those people that kidnapped us. We're going to return here to the underground prison, which has the official, somewhat ornate official translation of the Hypogean jail, but the Japanese just underground prison. Very interesting bit of translation work going on there. I think the idea of using ornate language fits in with the genre of Bloodborne, so I think it makes sense. But I do understand some people who were sort of lost by what the name actually means. They were sort of thrown by the strange terminology, and clarity is something that you generally tend to strive for in a translation. So on the one hand, I think it fits the genre. On the other hand, I feel like it's a little bit off-putting for a certain part of the audience, so sort of take it or leave it. I mean, for the effect it had on me personally, I thought it was nice, but my opinion is just one in a world of many people. But anyway, we're going to warp back there, and we're going to get some revenge. We're going to get our arcane playthrough really started here. See you soon. Okay, and the reason I really wanted to open this shortcut is, boom. Now we don't have to deal with those kidnappers at all. We don't have to deal with the kidnappers in the main chamber. We don't even have to deal with the enemy that waits to ambush us behind the columns. We don't have to deal with... Oh, we just missed a Wandering Madness. Well, I'll be back. We don't have to worry about the kidnapper walking the dogs on the other side. None of that. We do have to worry about this giant boar. But we are now thoroughly... There we go. Thoroughly in the outdoors portion. And if you see, this is the fun thing about converting your weapon to fire damage. It adds a little flame effect. So it sort of, you can see the enemies burst in flame from your attacks, so that you know it's not just some random thing, but you are actually setting up your weapon to spark flames. It's pretty cool. And good, okay. Sometimes mistime that, and bad things happen when you mistime that roll. You get punished pretty hard. And stay right there. Alright. Oh, that's fine. That's fine. The arcane damage that I'm dealing is quite significant, as you can see. Normally, those pigs are so hardy that it's sort of not worth taking them out unless you can set up that visceral, that sort of backstab, unique backstab thing they have going on there, but arcane damage? Chews right through them. Oh, it's nice. Oh, and of course, we have this note. It's it's a little bit tricky to know what exactly the correct timing is to read some of these notes. The one that was over by the lantern in this other room here, as we can see the kidnappers from the other direction, that lantern up there that you can see in that distant glow, there's a note up there that we were reading we were reading in the last episode that clearly is nonsensical at this point in the game. It will eventually make sense. It will eventually make a lot of sense. But at the moment, sounds a strange thing about a baby. And then underneath, there is a message that I think we're supposed to read at this point in the game, because it sort of gives us our motivation to find Bergenworth, which otherwise we don't really have. And then there's this note, which says, behold, a pale blood sky. I just remember the official translation because it's so short and punchy. Literal version, what? It's a command form of look, as a superior would to a lower ranked person. So... behold, I think, is perfect, but look, just to, I guess, be a little bit more literal. And the interesting thing about, right, a pale blood sky, perfectly good translation, the way that, again, the Japanese uses the modifier, right, so aozameta chi, chi means blood, aozameta means gone pale, right, very literally gone blue, but in this case, we're talking about, like, the Japanese expression of blue to mean pale. And, right, so, because, like, when blood drains away from your face, your face is said to turn blue in Japanese, the way we say it turns pale or white in English. So it's the equivalent of paled blood. Blood has gone pale. But the way that that whole phrase is being joined to sky, so a pale blood sky, a sky of pale blood is another way to think of it. But that's also, the joining connecting thing there, the particle no, is also used to indicate possession. And so this could be pale blood's sky. And this is one of Last Protagonist's points. I've been integrating a lot of Last Protagonist's lore-based points based off of the Japanese as I've been going through this playthrough. And some of them, like the one I was talking about a couple episodes back, where we're talking about the integration of gives us a reason to go to Bergenworth because we find out about this ritual that's happening, and we connect the dots to another note, and it's like, oh, the Bergenworth spider's hiding the ritual, and we need to uncover the ritual, so we need to stop the Bergenworth spider. That sort of logic, I think, is indisputable. This particular part of the logic, and I mean, again, I have one opinion in a world of many, so maybe it's not actually indisputable. But anyway, this particular interpretation of it being either a sky of pale blood in the sense that a pale blood sky, sort of in general, versus pale blood's sky, the sky that belongs to pale blood, is another potential interpretation. That one I'm a little less sure of, but it does work linguistically. So if we look up here, it's actually, we know for a fact it's too early about this one. There's an interview you can reference with the director of Bloodborne. I've referenced it before in this playthrough, and he talks about how you're supposed to come at this note more than once, because we will eventually come back to this area. And when we do, that's when we will see a true pale blood sky. At the moment, it's being hidden. Like all the rituals are being hidden, the sky is being hidden. So we'll come back to that note later. Meanwhile, let's make our way down to this plaza. I think there's just the dog. There's really not a whole heck of a lot out here. What is that? Yeah, 2 dogs. Okay, that's what it is. Hey, buddy. I realize you're focused on other things at the moment, and I appreciate it. And, of course, we have a bunch of Madman's knowledge. Look, all of these people, we can see from the Holy Shawl, are members of the church, members of the Healing Church, and they are bowed down in supplication towards this doorway. And, you know, maybe, just maybe, I have a little bit of an advantage because I've played more of the game, but just maybe something going on back here is important. Maybe that's where the ritual that we heard about is taking place, behind closed doors, of course. We can't access this part of the world just yet. And whatever it is, all these people seem to have died in the process of supplicating themselves to whatever mysterious ritual may have been taking place beyond these doors. And presumably, in the process, they gained insight, which we have just collected from them in the form of Madman's knowledge. I think that's a super cool, very interesting use of storytelling in true Soulsborne fashion, where you just have some item placements on some corpses, and they're posed in a unique way and positioned in a particular place in the game, and you can take all these individual little dots that in any other game, well, maybe not any other game, but in most other games wouldn't really amount to much, and make a whole story out of them for Bloodborne. And I think it works, personally. I'm inclined to believe, yeah, there's some very secretive arcane ritual happening just beyond these doors, and these people who, in support of it, were sort of bowing themselves, maybe contributing as best they could from out here. They had their minds blown. They contacted an additional form of knowledge about the world because of what's happening back here, and it was too much for them. They died, and now we've inherited their madman's knowledge. Their arcane knowledge that resembles madness. Anyway, we also get this particular hunter set, which we'll soon be changing into. But before we do that, we have to do our tradition. We have to go and read all of the descriptions. So let's see. If I remember correctly, these ones, yeah, they're slightly different depending on the piece of attire. It looks like the headpiece and the chest piece are fairly unique, whereas the handpiece and the leg piece are basically the same. So let's start with the handpiece here. Thick black gloves that the hunters of the Hidden Ward, or Unseen Village, wear. Sort of like wear as in, like, cloak themselves in. I'll put a actual definition up there of mato, but sort of an interesting verb there. But I feel like the English that I'm giving isn't quite sufficient to the meaning. But again, I can put up the actual dictionary definition in editing. Let's see. Moving on. Okay, so they, which are connected with the Mensis school faction, School of Mensis in the official translation, which I'm just going to use from now on because it's better. It's totally fine. And then, let's see. So the School of Mensis, which presides over the hidden ward. Okay. So I sort of interrupted myself in the middle of that sentence. So let's try that again. So they, who are connected to the School of Mensis, which presides over the hidden ward, that's the subject. That whole entire first line is just describing that subject, are an unsavory group of kidnappers who are hunters purely in name, only in name. And we're seeing, again, the domo, which I've now looked up and know is derogatory, right? So hitosarai is kidnapper, and then domo is pluralizing kidnapper, so kidnappers, but in a derogatory fashion, right? So nasty bunch of kidnappers parading around as hunters in name only, essentially. And their attire, that attire, literally, blends into the night, right? So the purpose of this set of attire for these hunters who belong to the School of Mensis, which presides over the hidden ward, they are hunters in name only, and their clothing helps them blend into the darkness so that they can better kidnap people. They're just a group of kidnappers. They're taking advantage of the night of the hunt to grab people off the street. This is exactly what the situation we found ourselves in, right? And it's sort of telling us by implication that some, if not all, of what's happening is because of the School of Mensis. For some reason, they have associates posing as hunters whose true objective is to kidnap people on the night of the hunt. Now, I'm editing myself in to clarify that it's uncertain which of the two ongoing rituals requires this, let alone why, but the involvement of the School of Mensis seems pretty likely. Okay, let's see. It is a set of attire, set of clothing that is concerned largely with physical defense, which sort of makes sense if what they want to do is kidnap people, right? They're not necessarily looking to go around fighting beasts. They want to be able to resist the physical altercations they might get in while kidnapping people. All right, and as I said before, the leg piece is exactly the same. So let's move up here to the black garb, the chest piece. Okay, the first line is pretty similar. It's the thick black garb worn by the hunters of the Unseen Village. Okay, and then the central section is the same. Let's just verify very quickly by going back and forth. Yep. The central portion is the same, about them being connected to the School of Mensis, hunters in name only. The attire lets them blend into the night. They're a bunch of kidnappers. And then the final set of lines starts out the same. You can even see this if I very quickly go back and forth. It starts out the same. Their attire is mostly focused on physical defense. However, the rough rope wrapped around is used for restraining and at the same time serves as a kind of charm, right? I want to say protection, but it's not like physical protection. It's like a sort of magical sort of protection like you would consider a charm. So this set is, they have a rope that's wrapped around it. The rope serves two purposes on the garb, and this is why I think the garb has that unique description, because we have the leg piece and we have the hand piece, we have the head piece. Headpiece, you can see a little bit of the rope too, but these two, at least, you don't see any particular rope hanging off of it. This one prominently has rope hanging draped over it, and that rope that is wrapped around has two purposes. One, physically restrains people, right? So they sneak up and they wrap people up in that rope very quickly, I guess. And at the same time, it serves as like an arcane protection. I don't know what they're protecting themselves in terms of arcane. Maybe the effects of the ritual, this gives them a little bit of protection from it. Or maybe it's just superstition. Again, the line between true, like, deep understanding in Bloodborne and madness is razor thin. So maybe they just made that up. But it serves two purposes. One is to sort of ward off evil influences or undesirable influences, and the other is just to wrap people up. Okay, and then finally, the black hooded iron helm. I'm remembering the official translation, and it's totally workable, totally, not just workable, excellent. It's so weird doing this sort of playthrough. But anyway, let's go ahead and go through the description piece by piece here. Okay, iron helmet worn by the hunters of the Unseen Village, the Hidden Ward. And then the first two lines are the same familiar ones we've seen about how the hunters in name only, group of kidnappers connected to the School of Mensis, which presides over the Hidden Ward. And, okay, the black hood is worn down low over the eyes. Okay, and then the final line that's there. Okay, it is a rare metal defensive tool for hunters, right? So hunters don't tend to use like metallic tools for protection, and this is one of those. This is one of those rare metallic tools used for protection. And if limited purely to physical defense, it has very high defensive effect. Boy, that's nastily literal. Gross. Every time I finish one of these super literal descriptions, I feel a little bit gross. But we've done it. We've made it. We've made our way through it. Conveyed, I think, the most salient ideas there. And now, let's see how it looks. When it's not just a picture, but we can look at it in 3D space. And there you can see that rope wrapped around sort of the neck and the back there. That's how they would unwrap that and just wrap it around people and kidnap them. Because these are not actual hunters. They're taking advantage of the night of the hunt to kidnap people and do their crazy rituals. Whew! All right. Think we've well and truly covered that set. Boy, Bloodborne is beautiful, though. Look at that. Oh, just incredible. Anyway, we've already looked at that note and I've explained that it's too early. We've already killed this boar, which means we should be able to go back here and get this item. Very nice. Some bolt paper. This is like the equivalent to the fire paper that we found earlier, except rather than adding fire, it adds bolt. And of course, again, paper as in like sandpaper, because literally it's sort of like a rasp or a file. Something like that. Anyway, by rubbing this, so this is rubbing this sort of special rasp or sandpaper or whatever on a weapon, you cloak it, you add lightning to it. Okay, it is an invention of Archibald, who was known among the Healing Church workshop members as a weirdo, and recreates artificially the blue lightning that is said to cloak a black beast or a dark beast. I like dark beast better. Sounds cool, like a dark storm rolling in, right, with the lightning. If dark beast, of course, is the official translation. And then the final set of lines will have to be handled in editing. They literally work out to something like, unlike the odd weapon from his hand, this is said to have had some admirers among hunters, particularly if they had even once seen, or had audience with, a black beast. Because as we've been over before, that could be mieta or mamieta, for seen or had audience with / met. Whew. All right. So we've learned a little bit about Archibald. We know he made a weapon, by implication, that wasn't particularly popular, but that, and that he was considered something of a weirdo. He was obsessed with these things called darkbeasts. He was obsessed with these things called darkbeasts, and therefore became some sort of obsessed with bolt and lightning and those sorts of effects. Ooh, nice. And I'm loving the fact that I'm tearing through these enemies here, these dogs. But any hunter who'd seen a dark beast was super impressed with that bolt paper. So there you have it. I feel like I'm hearing more. Is it just the dogs further on? feel like I'm hearing more barking than there are dogs. Oh, it's back here. Did he get stuck? I feel like he must have gotten stuck or something. So long, buddy. Your confusion was the end of you, although you did confuse me too. Alright, now things get a little bit trickier. We have a kidnapper again, which of course makes things very tricky. I gotta get a little bit closer. Gotta use these pebbles to good effect to draw away just the dogs, ideally one at a time. Okay, good. I was worried it would get stuck on the other dog. Did not want it getting stuck on the other dog. Alright, now we go over here. Can't get too close, but again, with that kidnapper turned the other direction, I'm not super worried about it noticing us. I am surprised I haven't been able to hit the dog with the pebble. What is going on here? There we go. Thank you. Thank you for noticing me. Alright, whoa! I thought I got lulled into a false sense of security by that other dog. Alright. I'm gonna be risky. I'm not gonna use my blood bullets. I'm just gonna try and sneak up on this thing from behind. Because oh no! Ah! That's what I get for being risky. It's too risky. Alright, now buff yourself. And allow me to gain the upper hand. There we go! Yes. Thank you for the bloodstone shards. I guess that's going to be good, because we're eventually going to be wanting to level up other weapons. And now we have discovered the Tonitrus. And remember how Archibald was said to have made a weapon that wasn't particularly popular? It's that weapon! We found it! Giving things away a little bit early, but I don't think it's a huge spoiler. Alright, so let's go over here. Tonitrus. This Tonitrus, by the way, is just Latin for, I think it's thunder. Might also be lightning. But there are a few things in Bloodborne that are just Latin terms, and the translators, by and large, just left them in Latin. And I think that's very cool, but if you don't know Latin, like I didn't until I started doing some research for Translationborn, it can be very confusing to come across it and then be like, oh, it's this Latin term, and then you get a much better idea for sort of what the thing was going for. So they've literally played, and then I think Latin, is very sort of appropriate, because that was sort of the default language in our world of the church. So by using a lot of Latin terms, particularly in association with the Healing Church, like we know Archibald was connected to the Healing Church workshop, that sort of use of Latin gives you a little bit of a real-world tie, helps do a little bit of world building, where it gets across this idea that, okay, it's associated with the church, and therefore we're throwing in some Latin terminology here. So, Tonitrus, actual Latin term. Even if I can't 100% remember if it's thunder or lightning, but something to that effect. All right, and again, very first line, we have Archibald, who was known among the Healing Church workshop as a weirdo. I think they called him an eccentric in the official translation. Weirdo is such an out of place, right? Talk about the wrong register of language for an item description in Bloodborne. Like, you read weirdo, if they had actually used that term in the official translation, it would have taken you immediately out of it. So I'm glad they didn't. But it is funny. It is funny for me to think of it now. Anyway, this is a... so again, Archibald, who was known as a weirdo in the Healing Church workshop, created a unique trick weapon, and it's this. That's a very bad way for me to put it, because I tried to start with Archibald. Really, this whole thing, the whole first two lines, are sort of leading up to a modification of trick weapon, or device installed weapon. So it's a unique trick weapon from the hand of Archibald, who was known as a weirdo of the Healing Church workshop. Whew, that's all a long string of modifiers. It's funny. Anyway, moving on. So by rubbing this weird iron ball of a mace, you can artificially recreate the blue lightning said to cloak a darkbeast. However, hunters of the same time, right, contemporaneous with Archibald, hunters who are of Archibald's time, appear to have not been fond of it, appear to have not taken a liking to it, right? So again, we're getting that information. They liked the bolt paper, they weren't really a fan of the Tonitrus. And I've always taken that as something of a hint of the fact that the Tonitrus, as I've sort of said in another part of my Old Hunt playthrough here, it wears down very quickly. Its durability, especially if you give it the lightning buff, just it goes very, very quickly. So you have a lot of power on demand, but it's also a fragile weapon. It's one of the only weapons in Bloodborne where you seriously have to pay attention to the durability. And if you're not careful and going back to the Hunter's Dream and fixing it up every now and then, every so often, you will have it start to get at risk and then potentially break on you, and that's not fun. When it becomes at risk, which is before it fully breaks, when it starts to become at risk, its damage output drops severely, and then not only that, it then, as it continues to go, like when it completely breaks, it's like useless. So got to be careful how you use it. And there are other ways that you can say that maybe, other reasons that maybe they wouldn't be fond of it, but that's always been the one that I thought was the most salient. Anyway, speaking of going back to the dream, I'm going to do that in order to sort of replenish my stock here. Also, I want another shot at taking out that Wandering Madness that I missed earlier. And I think what I'll do, because eventually I want to then go down and make my way and fight the boss. And I think what I'm going to do, because we're sort of approaching a decent episode length here, I don't want to bore you with the mechanical stuff I do in the dream, is I'm going to cut out my visit to the dream, and then I'll come back here, and then we'll fight the boss, and that'll be the episode. So I will see you after I have made my preparations, and we'll hunt down a Wandering Madness. Okay, I am back from the dream, where I gained 1 level and grabbed a number of blood vials. I would pull up my status screen to show you that I gained a level. However, I want to be fast enough that this enemy can't run away from me. And once again, I want to point out, do you remember how I cornered that other one and it sort of took me forever in the last episode to kill it, to wear down his physical defenses? Well, this one I just tore through its defenses because it's not as well fortified against arcane attacks. Also, this must be some sort of glitch. This must be the same Wandering Madness, and I got all excited for no reason because I didn't think they respawned. And this one, like, sort of did respawn anyway, but it hasn't dropped any items for me. So I wonder if this is some sort of 1.00 thing, or if this is just some other known glitch. As far as I know, this is an unknown 1.00 thing. But again, I don't necessarily retain the best information when it comes to that information, that sort of detail, the mechanical details of what did or didn't get changed in various patches. Anyway, oh, right, I wanted to, before I run past those kidnappers, let's go over here and I can show you my status. You'll notice that my arcane is now up to 21. I keep wanting to get higher. I gotta get to that 25. It's the first major breakpoint, and then I can start focusing on the other stats again, because we'll have hit the first sort of major milestone in damage boosts to weapons. All right, and all right, that door is not open. That door won't open. Okay, this is not the time for that door. I am recalling this now. And it is the time for the central door down here. This is what will allow us to... This will take us to the boss. And I sort of indicated it before. And I talked about the kidnapper conference room and how it's really scary to fight them. It is really scary to fight them, but you can just run past them. If you know what you're doing, and you're not just in exploration mode, you can come out here, and they will not follow you. And you can do, this is the drop I was talking about. Can't get back up here, even if you use your sort of pitiful jump. Yeah, not even close. But if we come over this way, we will find ourselves faced with a boss. Let's go. Look at this. Look at this heap of bones that reanimates. Here it is. It's Blackbeast. Oh, I didn't realize that AoE was going to hurt me. Oops. It's Blackbeast or Darkbeast Paarl. Okay. Alright, we have ourselves a boss fight. Okay. I gotta go for the limb breaks. Okay. There we go. That particular thing is an AoE, where it deals a huge amount of lightning damage. But if you time it right, you get your invincibility frames going at just the right time, you can dodge through it and not take any damage. Okay, however, I don't want to be dodging through anything right now. I want to be healing. I want to be far away and healing. Because at least in this phase... Okay, I want to not lock on, actually, because then I can more precisely control where I'm attacking. Okay, and now I want to be far away. I don't want to be caught in that AoE, because I'm not reliably able to time the dodge. Okay, now I want to be far away again so I can heal. But this is not a promising start to this fight. Okay. Boy, I am not fond of how I've been reduced to half of my blood vials already. Here's the thing, though. The limb breaks... Uh-oh, I got caught by that AoE. The limb breaks are eventually going to add up. And... Oops. Provided I can target them properly. There we go. And we're going to rob it of all its electricity. And when it's been robbed of its electricity, its defenses plummet. So this is my turn to go sort of into all-out attack mode. Of course, it will now try and regather, here we go, its electricity. But if I get another limb break, we can break its electricity again immediately. Look at that, another limb break. And it's down for the count. Woo! Boy, the way that start fighted, listen to me. I can't talk. The way that fight started, I did not expect it to end that way. Even though I knew it's possible, particularly in this version of the fight, I knew it was possible that I could lock Paarl into that sort of combo where I broke his lightning defenses and then continued to serially break limbs to keep him weak and stay on the attack. Even then, I wasn't sure this was going to be a winning attempt. I thought I might have to retry that a few times. And thankfully, it all came together in the end. I was able to very nicely make my point and not have to suffer death too rapidly there. It's a little bit of an annoying run back, too, because even though you can run past those kidnappers, every now and then one of them just does a jump attack out of nowhere and can sometimes catch you. So that's always a little bit annoying. But having defeated Paarl and gone through the hidden ward there, we have now made our way back to another place, and it should be a little familiar once I open this door. Yes, as the bottom right-hand corner of the screen is showing you, we are back in Old Yarnum. And indeed, we have this corpse, which used to have some item on it that we have already taken for ourselves. And if we come over here, we'll notice that this is sort of the square that is prowled by these werewolves. So, yes, this is a direct connection between the Unseen Village, with their hidden ward and their strange ritual, and Old Yarnum. And this is going to allow us access, this is going to allow us to return to speak once again with Jira, and sort of advance that particular quest line a bit. But I'm not going to do that right now, because we just beat a boss. I feel like this is a very suitable point to end the episode. Let's get a nice, cool, gothic backdrop going on here. And I'm going to take this opportunity to call an end to my hunt for the evening, but I wish all of you good hunting. Yeah, first try.